When you do prep for fantasy baseball, you'll get plenty of sleepers, breakouts, must-haves, and all those players you think are going to be the really smart late round picks. And of course, everybody loves their prospects, those rookies with untapped potential. A lot of those rookies and prospects just do not pan out. Who's the one that you should be really interested in? Well, there's one prospect that is skyrocketing up draft boards right now in expert leagues. I'm going to tell you who it is and why. I know most people aren't drafting yet for fantasy baseball, but some people are, and a lot of them are in the NFBC, that's the National Fantasy Baseball Championship. If you do those leagues and you check the ADP, this is people who know what they're doing, people who play in big stakes leagues, experts, a lot of times analysts, people like me who cannot wait to draft and dig into the rankings. And you might notice that a guy named Matt Shaw has climbed over 100 spots in ADP just over the past month. If you're a Cubs fan or a prospect town, you know Matt Shaw. He's the #1 prospect in the Cubs organization, but now he's got a golden opportunity to produce in the 2025 season right off the bat. Cubs president Jed Hoyer said that Shaw will get a long look at third base. And that's because the path is clear for him after the Kyle Tucker trade. I know that the Cubs did get Kyle Tucker, but in doing so, they gave up current third baseman Isaac Paredes going to Houston and one of their other top third base prospects, Cam Smith, also on the way to Houston. So this is basically Shaw's job to lose now. He climbed quickly through the minors, finishing at AAA last season, and this is a guy who can definitely hold down third base. If he has a strong spring, then he will be the starting third baseman for the Cubs. With Shaw, the appeal is very obvious. According to Fangraphs, he grades out with 60 power and speed, and he can hit for average as well. I mean, he hit 298 just at the AAA level. In fact, last year, 131 at-bats for AAA Iowa, 298 average, 395 OBP, and 534 slugging, 7 home runs, 21 RBIs, and 6 steals in just those 35 games. Before that, at the AA level, he was pretty strong, hit 279, and had 14 home runs and 50 RBIs over 312 at-bats. And he ran a lot more when he was at AA, 25 steals. So you can see this is a guy who can contribute in every category, and that's always what you're looking for if possible in fantasy. And while we tend to get carried away with youth and raw potential and upside, there's something to be said for someone who might come in as a little bit more of a polished product. He's actually got some college experience going to University of Maryland, and he's not going to be one of the youngest rookies to debut this year. He's at 23 already, and having played at each level, not skipping over AAA completely like some of these hitters do. And so this could be somebody who starts out strong. You don't have to wait and hope that he manages to hit major league pitching. Of course, as we know, there's no such thing as a sure thing, no matter how highly ranked a prospect is. But when you're looking for somebody who has upside with all those categories and is going so late in drafts, this is definitely somebody that you want to try to grab now. If you do early drafts, whether it's NFBC or anywhere else, you want to take advantage. Like I said, just from the first week of December until the first week of January, this is a guy who was barely being drafted, going outside of the 300s, and now he's going ahead of some other people at his position, such as Michael Garcia of the Kansas City Royals, Josh Young of the Texas Rangers, and even, believe it or not, Nolan Arenado. Now, there's obviously a lot of uncertainty with him and where he's even going to play and what does he have left in the tank. But still, Matt Shaw has jumped that far in the rankings at third base. Now, one player here has not jumped over in ADP is Isaac Paredes, the guy who just went from the Cubs to the Astros. And there's a good reason why. The Astros obviously still a very good offensive club, but also it's a great fit for Paredes. We know he is a pure pull hitter, a guy who just yanks the ball to left field, and this is perfect for Minute Maid Park. Paredes in that lineup, in that park, could potentially set a career high in home runs. He's never really had a favorable ballpark in which to hit for a power hitter like him, and he's still in the prime of his career. So while Paredes does definitely have more power upside, he's probably not going to hit for average like Shaw, and he's not going to steal bases like Shaw. I'm not saying that Shaw deserves to be drafted over Paredes. I wouldn't do that because we know what Paredes can do at the major league level. But again, once you get down to that range, those players already talked about, Garcia gives you speed, but really not that much power. And then again, Nolan Arenado, it's questionable how much power he really still has left to offer. You know he doesn't get you steals. I'd like to still be in on Josh Jung. I was way too high on him last year, and I know obviously injuries were a big part of it, but you got to wonder if Young can really stay on the field for a full season. And as far as lineup context goes, well, looking at the Cubs in general, it's not the best ballpark for a hitter overall, Wrigley Field, but again, Shaw's not purely a power hitter. It's still a good offensive context for him because, the Cubs, well, it feels like they did worse. I'm surprised they finished 12th overall in runs scored last season. And that's on the strength of a strong end because in the second half of the season, they were fourth in runs scored. This team really did turn it on. It's going to look a little bit different, this lineup. Obviously, Bellinger out, Tucker in, and now Shaw at third base. But overall, from an on-base percentage standpoint, this should help their lineup. Shaw will have a chance of driving some runs, but also right now he's slotted by roster resource to be in that 8th spot in the lineup, and so we could see some turnover. He can score some runs if he can get himself on base, and then the top of the order can drive him in. He should still have plenty of opportunities to run as well. The Cubs finished 8th in total stolen bases last year. And again, it feels like they got off to a really kind of a sluggish start under new manager, Craig Counsell, and really started to be more aggressive and pick things up toward the end. So we could see a much better version of the Cubs offense this year with Shaw as maybe an everyday part of it. And Steamer projections are pretty bullish on Shaw already. They have him as the 6th highest rated offensive player on the Chicago Cubs right now. Early projections have him at a nice, neat 15 home runs, 15 steals, 56 RBIs, 56 runs scored. And that's with a batting average sitting right there at 250. Now, of course, projection systems tend to be a little bit more conservative. We know the upside is for more, but at the same time, we don't want to get carried away with a guy who has 0 actual major league at-bats under his belt. So right now, the upside is there for Shaw. This is definitely worth taking a shot on outside the top 200. But I don't imagine he's going to stay there too long as things kind of settle in here and we get closer to draft season. I bet you Shaw creeps closer to 150. I don't think he's going to go too high, and you can still grab him probably outside the top 10 at the position. So if you're going to wait on third base, or if that's just how your draft plays out, yeah, I'm definitely going to go with a guy who has that power, has that speed, and has a prime spot in a pretty good lineup. I'll talk plenty more sleepers, prospects, breakout candidates, and all that, and some ADP values. If you missed it, I already had a long talk with Chris Towers of CBS Sports Fantasy Baseball Today. You can check out my chat with him on some great ADP values right here.